John Farrell with the Farrell Law Firm. Today we're going to talk about what would happen if you were gone tomorrow. But first, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We put out new videos almost every day, and make sure you hit the like button because, hey, every like helps. Today we're going to talk about what would happen if you were gone tomorrow. Look, it's not an easy thing to think about, but that day is coming for all of us. The day when we are simply no longer here. So what would that look like for your family? Without a proper estate plan in place, it could mean your family could endure unnecessary stress, confusion, and hardships. If you were gone tomorrow, there are 3 roads your family could find themselves traveling down depending on whether you had a proper estate plan in place. Let's talk about all 3. First, let's imagine that you didn't even have a basic estate plan in place. For some of you, that won't be so hard to imagine because you don't have one in place. So for you, it would mean your assets would be divided according to state law at the probate court. If you are married with no children, then your spouse would get all of your assets. If you are married with 1 child, it would mean your spouse would get half of your estate and the child would get the other half. That's right, even if the child is under 18. Finally, if you are married with 2 or more children, it means your spouse would get 1/3 of your estate, while the other 2/3 of your estate would be divided amongst your children. You may say, well, my spouse and I own everything jointly, so wouldn't it just go to my spouse? Not necessarily. It depends on how the assets are titled. If they aren't titled with what's called rights of survivorship, then your estate divides it up depending on whether you have an estate plan or not. Just this morning, I had a widow call the office because she needed help going through the probate process because the house, even though it was owned jointly, wasn't titled with rights of survivorship. Second, let's imagine that you have a basic estate plan in place, and that means you have a last will and testament. That means your family will take that will to the probate court and start what's called the probate process. Yes, that's right. Your family will still have to go to the probate court even if you have a will. That's because the will doesn't prevent your family from going to the probate court, it just guides them through the probate court. Your will can say just about anything, meaning it can say where you want your assets to go, but it's going to be a long and sometimes costly process. On average, it takes anywhere from a year to a year and a half to go through probate. You may say, well, my dad died last year and it didn't take that long. That may be true. Some probates are shorter than a year and some are longer than a year. That's just the average. Want to know what determines how long it's going to take? Not whether the estate is simple or not. No, it depends on the court and the family. For the court, sometimes they require inventories and annual reports, and sometimes they require hearings and surety bonds to make sure you're not going to run off with the money. For your family, it depends on how cooperative they are. I don't mean how well they get along. I mean, how quickly are they going to be with returning paperwork? I hear it all the time. People will tell me how diligent their family is going to be if they pass away, but that day comes and one of their children lets the paperwork sit on their kitchen table for 2 months before returning it to us. Those things take time. Third, let's imagine you have something we call a will alternative. Perhaps you have a revocable living trust. The revocable living trust is designed to avoid probate, so it won't matter how much the court wants to know about the estate because your family won't have to go to probate court. Further, it won't matter how cooperative the family is going to be because your successor trustee will have the authority to distribute your assets without having to get them to sign off on a bunch of paperwork. It is by far the easiest way for your family to deal with your passing, but it's usually more costly than a basic estate plan. So if you were gone tomorrow, what would happen? Don't let your legacy be tarnished by not having an estate plan in place. Alright, that's all we have for today. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because we put out new videos almost every day, and make sure you hit the like button because, hey, every like helps.